Record Store Nation. Oh my God. First off, before I forget, because we did forget last episode, we have to thank our house band. It's Freens and Banks. We have to thank them for our theme song for the record store. Much apologies, and man, did I have to eat some crow after not thanking them in the last episode. So thank you so much to Freens and Banks. Hopefully they forgive us and they continue to do such a great opening tune for our entrance music on the record store. So welcome to the record store. It is Rocktober. We're in the heart of Rocktober. You know, there's a chill in the air. People are eating pumpkins just like raw, like just picking pumpkins out of the ground and eating them raw, because that's what we do in America. We're like overindulging on the pumpkin stuff. So, and, you know, pumpkin spice lattes, because, you know, that's all that Starbucks makes this time of year. I don't understand the fascination with pumpkin. I don't dislike it, but Jesus, give me some maple or caramel apple or something else, anything else, mushroom, I don't even care. So anyway, but we're in the midst of Rocktober. It's hot and heavy. Rocktober is our annual tribute to the current year on the record store. I take over the network. Brian takes a slight back seat, maybe like the middle seat, maybe not the back seat, but the middle seat. He lets me take over and focus on the music for the month of October. So to give it a theme, we came up with the fact that, you know, I think that too many of us rely on the 80s and 90s and classic rock and stuff and don't pay attention to the fact that there's actually great music coming out today. And whether it's new bands or music from bands that we love that are still active and doing stuff today, I want to make Rocktober every year. The tradition is that we're going to salute albums from the current year. So also Rocktober, we do prizes. The record store, there's a record store t-shirt that will be given away. There is, of course, a copy of All the Right Notes. I'm holding it up now, but we're not on YouTube, so you can't see that. All the Right Notes, which is available on Amazon.com for, I think it's still on sale, so pick it up while you can. It's perfect for stocking stuffers, even at the low price that it is right now, especially at the low price. We'll be giving away a copy of that, as well as a record store t-shirt. Sign up for Patreon. You will be eligible to win like great listeners like Chris Courtesy, Ed Bogus, and all the others that listen to the record store. Sorry if I'm not naming your name, Tom Reese. If I'm not naming your name, it's only because there are so voluminous members, so many of you that, you know, I don't know all the names. It's impossible. I'm a smart guy, but I can't remember all the names. So anyway, if you're not a Patreon already, please join. You'll be eligible to win all kinds of other prizes and cool stuff. This one is, again, talking about an album from this year. In the next episode is the special episode that Brian, I guess the annual episode that Brian joins me on, and he picks out the album. I'm really nervous about that because I'm afraid he's going to pick something rap, and I'm not going to like it. But then again, I like so much of what I talk about here. It'll be good for me as something different to talk about an album that I hated. So anyway, no, I'm just kidding. So he might, who knows, he might pick out something that I like, but I don't know what it is. The two of us are going to do the episode together live and compare notes and see if he loves the album and I hate it, or vice versa, or we both love it, or we both hate it, or whatever the case may be. So anyway, back to Rocktober. Again, only features albums from the current release year. I have about 25 albums thick stack that I'm pulling from here. So the album that we pulled this time, this is TRS-37 too, by the way. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening. So the album that we pulled this time for Rocktober is called Fierce Bliss, and it is by the one and only Ann Wilson. And you've heard me say it before. Ann Wilson is in my Mount Rushmore of vocalists. Just an amazing, don't even need to qualify it with female vocalists. She is in my Mount Rushmore vocalists, period. She is the only woman on the Mount Rushmore, but still, either way. But if you had a female Mount Rushmore, she would be the first one for sure. She would be the first president on that one. So, but anyway, so this is Fierce Bliss. This is her third solo album. When you see it, it immediately reminds you of something. And if you're a rock and roll fan like I am, what it reminds you of is Yes album covers. Immediately. Like, there's something about Yes after the first, like, one or two Yes albums. There was probably, 12 or 15 Yes albums overall. But they all had the same artist after that first couple albums. They all had the same artist. Very noticeable artwork. And so the artwork on Fierce Bliss mimics that Yes artwork immensely, like note for note, if you will, if you use a music analogy. So I looked it up, and sure enough, Roger Dean is the name of the artist, and the name of the artist here, as well as all of the Yes albums. So it is something about that guy that is just very noticeable. It's like Peter Max, that kind of artwork from the 70s. Just very fantastic, very fantasy oriented. He did the Yes albums. He did Asia, Steve Howe, like all of those type guys. He did those albums. And so Anne brought him in to do the artwork for this one. So this, I will say, once again, we've talked about this. We're going to talk about the Anne and Nancy falling out here. It's sad that they both did solo albums over the last couple of years, but yet they could not come together to do a proper Heart album. Heart is a TRS favorite. I looked it up. We did episode 5 was The Road Home, which was the acoustic live album that Heart did. Episode 17 was the Nancy Wilson solo album, You and Me. So Heart is definitely favorites of ours, not just the fact that Anne will, and I say ours, like it's just me. Come on. I'm not, it's not Sybil over here doing the show with me. Shout out to John McAdam. So Heart is a definite favorite of mine. It's not just Ann Wilson's voice, although that is obviously a huge part of it, but the band itself is a favorite of TRS and myself. The Falling Out, we've talked about it before, but The Falling Out, because it has to do with this album. There's definitely some references to that here. So I'm going to talk about The Falling Out again. It happened in the summer of 2016 while they were on tour as Heart. Once again, Nancy's twin sons, the 16-year-old twin sons of Nancy, had the audacity of leaving Anne's husband's car door open. Dean Wetter is his name. And so, in fact, a little anecdote. His name is Dean Wetter. Her whack job husband is named Dean Wetter. The guy who did the artwork is Roger Dean. And so, I couldn't, obviously, Ann Wilson's husband's name is not something that's going to roll off your tongue and you're not going to know it by heart. But when I saw that Roger Dean did the artwork, and I knew that her husband was Dean, I'm like, wait, is that the same guy? Is that the artist that did, I'm thinking, did she actually have her whack job husband do the artwork? So it just so happened, just a coincidence, Roger Dean did the artwork. Dean Wetter is the crazy husband's name. So anyway, back to the story. So he got pissed because Nancy's twin sons, by Cameron Crowe, her ex-husband, the guy who wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High and a number of other, Almost Famous, a number of other Hollywood movies. So anyway, Dean Wetter got pissed because the two kids left his car door open, and he assaulted them. Bottom line, he assaulted them. There's no allegedly it happened, because he later pled guilty to the crime. So he punched one of them, he choked one of them, and punched the other one who came to his brother's defense. He punched the other one in the head. So whack job, dude. Sorry, you pled guilty, so obviously you did it, so I don't have to bother with the allegedly here because you're an asshole and you beat up two kids. Or at least you tried to beat up two kids. So you pled guilty for assault. He was given a 364-day suspended sentence. So I don't know why 364 instead of 365. I don't know why it was all suspended. He did serve a little bit of time in jail awaiting the charges, and they considered that the sentence. So he served some time. So again, the guy choked a 16-year-old kid, and punched the other one in the head. So I say, what the fuck, dude? He pled guilty, and yet he never apologized for the crime. Despite the fact it seems like it should go together. You pled guilty, you served a suspended sentence, but yet you never, actually apologized for the crime. So in the meantime, both Anne and Nancy have done solo albums since then. They've done nothing as Heart. They've done solo albums that neither one of them had the other one perform on, which would seem like even like Stevie Nicks would have Lindsey Buckingham perform on some of her solo stuff and vice versa. So even when there's been acrimony in bands, they realize that they together are better than they are apart. And so the fact that Anne and Nancy did not perform on either one's albums really says a lot to me. So there's been no Heart. There's been just solo projects from the two of them. There have been minor olive branches, but come on. You ladies are getting older now. There's not a ton of time left to get together. Anne is 72. Nancy's a couple years younger than that, but there's not that much time left. Let's be honest, so let's get together. Let's put bury the hatchet. Let's fix this. Let's not let Anne's whack job husband ruin everything. And I looked up a picture of the guy. He is a creepy looking John Waters kind of look-alike. And John Waters, nothing against John Waters, but creepy looking dude with the pencil thin mustache. And Anne's husband, Dean, looks a lot like him. So creepy looking dude. It's a tough spot for Anne. She's married to the guy. She could have literally walked away, and sided with her sister. But she took up for him, for better or worse. She took up for him. Nancy didn't want to hear it, so he, like I said, he never apologized. There's a number of other things, in play here. So Anne has acknowledged in recent interviews that the 2023, next year, is the 50th anniversary of Heart. She says there are plans. She didn't go into too much detail, but she says there are plans. So we'll see what that means. We'll see if, maybe the olive branches have actually brought something on. So the two have different visions for Heart. That's another aspect of this whole thing above and beyond the assault and the crime. They have different visions. Nancy is content to do some new stuff, but when they go on tour, rely on the hits and stick with the Heart formula. Anne wants to distance herself from the Heart formula and the Heart catalog and wanted to do her own type of material and kind of break away from the Heart canon, basically, which is really an interesting comment from both of them because in reality, the two solo albums couldn't be more opposite, and despite Nancy saying she was happy with the formula, Nancy's album is nothing like the formula. Nancy's album went way more folk. And Anne saying that she wanted to distance herself from the formula. Nope. This album is pure Heart formula, and we're going to get to that. So Nancy's comment about the whole thing in an interview, she said, "We just don't need the high school drama swirling around the camp. We just need to talk to each other." So, yeah, it's all true. They just need to come together. They just need to talk and work this out. Families have squabbles, things happen, and to let Dean Wedder come between them and prevent them from working together and doing such great, legendary music is a shame. That enough years have passed now. The whole incident was 2016. That was 6 years ago. So let's get the show on the road. Let's get together. So anyway, talking about Fierce Bliss, the album. Again, her third solo album. The cover art is striking. Again, it's pure Roger Dean. If you're a rock and roll fan, you notice it. You pick up on it instantly. It's instantly recognizable. Fantasy, these exotic landscapes. This one, for whatever reason, this album, the artwork, the Roger Dean artwork, he normally focused on these fantasy exotic landscapes, but this time it was about parrots, and I'm not sure what the deal was with the parrots. So, but there's parrots all over. Hey, Roger Dean is getting older too. He did all those Yes albums, which were in the 70s. So this guy's well into his 70s too. So for whatever reason, he obsessed with parrots. There's drawings of parrots all over this album. So in interviews, Anne said why she went with him is because she wanted this package to be a very valuable package to the listeners and the buyers. She wanted it to be a very, have them get it on vinyl and have it be a very cool looking package, a full complete package for the buyers and the listeners. So she chose him for the art. And it worked. It's a really nice looking package. Actually, it's a hardcover, kind of almost like a book with the lyric sheets inside. I like the package itself. It's a really nice looking thing, but the paper inside is black. So the lyrics are printed on black paper in multicolor. So a little bit tricky to read, but I made my way through it. It's okay. I had to put on the old man glasses to see it, but it was fine. But yeah, nice looking package despite the parrots. I don't know what that was all about, but whatever. So as I said, the first, this is Ann Wilson's third solo album. Her first two, interestingly enough, were all covers. And honestly, they flew so under the radar, I didn't know about those two albums that were all covers that came out before this one. So I had heard hype about this one coming out, and I got excited about it. So the first two were all covers. This one is 7 originals, 4 covers. So it's 11 songs, about 50 minutes long. The thank yous on here, one of them that was odd was DSW. And at first I thought DSW, it sounds like the shoe store. Designer Shoe Warehouse, I want to say. I'm not sure. But I thought, okay, just a coincidence. It's probably the studio where she recorded it or something, DSW. Maybe it's her management team. I don't know. Well, it's not the studio for sure, because it was recorded in a studio in Nashville, I believe, that they named in the liner notes, and it's not DSW. So maybe it is her management company or her manager altogether. I don't know. But anyway, so she thanks DSW. So thank you to DSW. Great shoes. So there's a couple known names, mildly known names on the album. Vince Gill is on here on one song. And then Kenny Wayne Shepherd, who's like a really popular underground bluesy guitarist that's on here as well. Otherwise, a bunch of studio guys rather. And so otherwise, not that many names you would recognize, but great album. Spoiler alert, great album. So, all right, so let's get to the song. So the first song is called Greed. It was released as a single. I know it didn't get much airplay or anything because, of course, there is no radio anymore. But Greed starts the album out. It's an original. It's a haunting open, and then it just kicks in immediately. It's very hard. Let's just say it's very hard. Driving guitar, and just sounds perfect on here. It just sounds like this song, Greed, sounds like the natural progression of Heart's early days and then leading to this as a Heart song. So it just seems like honestly, just like I said, like a natural progression. I love the keyboard interludes here. The bass is amazing on this song. Obviously, it's a cautionary tale. Greed is bad, pretty simple message. Greed is not good. There is a muffled effect on her voice towards the end, and it totally works. I know I talk about that all the time, how if somebody has such a great voice, why screw with it? Don't do tricks with people's voices when they're great singers, not needed. But here, this one actually works. It sounded really good. It's a very, like I said, like a muffled sound effect towards the end of the song. And it works. It totally works. So cannot say enough about how great Greed is as a song. It fits like flawlessly in the Heart canon, just flawlessly. If you told me that was a Heart song and I didn't know it was on an Ann Wilson solo album, I would not know any better. So if radio was different these days, I will say Greed would have been Magic Man, would have been Barracuda. That's how good this song is, and what a hell of an opener it is for this album. So Greed takes the album off to a hell of a start. So second song is called Black Wing. Kind of has like the opening few seconds of this is like a UFO beginning, actually. Reminded me of Love to Love, the UFO song with the piano beginning. So a very far away percussion sound with the piano opening. So yeah, for the first little bit, it sounds like UFO. And I really loved UFO when I was a kid too. Gradually, this goes towards the tried and true Led Zeppelin sound that the Wilsons just obviously adore. Over the years, they've done many covers of Led Zeppelin, and you can just tell in the music and the way they perform that they're huge, enormous fans of Led Zeppelin. And in fact, we even talked about it on the road home. They worked with John Paul Jones on that album. So it goes into a fuzzy guitar solo, and just completely cuts loose with the wail here that she's so well known for. The song is called Black Wing, so I thought it could be like an homage to Black Dog, Led Zeppelin, Black Dog. Does not sound at all like that song. I'm not saying that it's a ripoff or anything. It just seems like it's just a coincidence. A 2-word title. Black is the first word, so it just seems like it's an homage to Black Dog. So it has a really long musical out on this song. Just a clear reminder of how influential Zeppelin was to Heart, to Ann and Nancy, and maybe a little bit of UFO as well. I don't know. But I know I loved UFO, and I definitely heard that the piano sounded like UFO at the beginning of this. So definitely a great song. And a really fitting tribute to how much they love Led Zeppelin. So, all right, third song is called Bridge of Sighs. It's a somewhat well-known song on rock radio. It's a Robin Trower cover. Ann says in interviews that she's been waiting to cover this song forever and finally got around to it on this album. So I looked it up. I had to go on the old internet to get some information about Bridge of Sighs. And the first thing that comes up, interestingly, is that it is an actual bridge called the Bridge of Sighs in Venice, and it was built in 1600. So I'm like, okay, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but okay, good, nice little nugget to get that as well. But the song itself, Bridge of Sighs, was originally in 1974, so it's 48 years old. Fades in directly from the previous song from Black Wing. and just with a very bluesy guitar. I wasn't familiar with that song. I know Anne had said, "Oh, I love this song, and I've been wanting to cover it for a long time." I wasn't as familiar with that song. It's not something that gets tons of radio, classic rock airplay. But I knew the name, but I just didn't know the song that well. I don't really know much about Robin Trower. I just know who he was, whatever. I'm not sure. So. It starts with the very bluesy guitar. There's hardly any lyrics to this song whatsoever. It's like 2 or 3 lines, and they're repeated a handful of times. So it's mainly all about the bluesy guitar on this, the rock guitar on this song. So I was saying, as I was jotting down my notes, listening to it, that I can actually smell the bongs coming from the next dorm room over, and I can see the pot residue coming out of the album when you pull open the vinyl on this, when you listen to this song. So just very much 70s, it gives Anne, it's another great vehicle to give Anne a chance to show off her pipes and cut loose. Again, totally fits in with the late 70s sound that Heart had. Just before the big hair era began for Heart, where they had the hairspray on all the album covers, and they were all the glam shots of them and stuff, and the glam shots of the dudes that were in Heart too at the time. So in the era right before that, so like the very late 70s, this would fit in. Bridge of Sighs would have fit in with that. So a great execution of an old song. Great cover by Anne on this one, Anne and company on this one. So, all right, we're going to take a break. We're going to pay some bills, listen to our sponsors, and we will be right back with side 2 of Fierce Bliss by Ann Wilson, her solo album, her third solo album, and we'll be right back with more on the Record Store. Stay with us, guys. All right, we are back. Thank you, Record Store Nation, for listening to our sponsors. We are back to Rocktober, and we are back for the Ann Wilson third solo LP called Fierce Bliss. So far, so good. We're 3 songs in, and it's been really, really good so far. So we are jumping on the 4th song. It is called Fightin' for Life, and it is spelled Fightin', Fighten. And I am a spelling and grammar Nazi. Wait, can you say Nazi? Is that politically correct? I don't give a damn. Spelling and Nazi nerd? I know that would be correct. But anyway, Nazi nerd, whatever. Soup Nazi, is that still okay? Can they still air that episode of Seinfeld, Soup Nazi? Because, Snowflake Nation might have a problem with that. Anyway, so this is called Fightin' for Life, and Fightin' is spelled Fighten. I only bring that up because it looked so awkward, so I'm like, is that supposed to be frightened? Is it supposed to be fighting? I don't know, but that en finish of that word was kind of weird to me. So I looked it up, and fightin', en, is actually an Old English word. Of course it is. And it is a verb to fight or to battle. So it is actually a word, technically, but it just looked really awkward in the spelling. So what's really odd about this, that's odd, the spelling is odd, and I think what brings it full circle is this is actually an Anne original, and this is about her whack job husband, Dean. Not the artist, not Roger Dean, Dean Wetter. So this is definitely about her husband, because she sings a cat, which she uses the word cat. It's about a cat who some don't like, but he only speaks the truth, and he can't live the illusion. He's fighting for life. So it's about him. I'm positive it's about him, because obviously he's a man on an island, or they are a couple on an island, because nobody seems to like this guy. Everybody says he's a whack job, and obviously the fact that he went after those kids for having the unmitigated gall to leave a car door open, and he beats 2 kids over it. So anyway, he's a jerk, and everybody knows he's a jerk, and everybody says he's a jerk. So this is Anne's, I guess, paying tribute to the fact that she loves her husband and she stuck with him through it all. So for better or worse, as they say. So this song, Fightin' for Life, is a real mellow, bluesy rocker. I'm okay with the weirdness of the subject matter here, because the song itself is really good. The music itself is very hypnotic. It has kind of a Traffic sound to it. The song that specifically comes to mind is Low Spark of High Heel Boys. So like a Traffic kind of sound, but I really enjoyed it. I thought Fightin' for Life, again, you can say what you will about the lyrics and the lyrical content, but the song itself is good. So even though the guy's a schmuck and the guy's a dick, I mean, there have been probably songs about other assholes in life that, have been great songs as well. So Fighting for Life is a great song, despite the fact that it's about a jerk. So then we go into a couple of the covers. Number 5 on this album is Love of My Life. It is a Queen cover. Not a really, really well-known Queen song, but I had heard it. I think it's ironic the placement of this song here, right after Fighting for Life, which is about her husband. Then the next song is called Love of My Life. So it's ironic placement that, she's singing about her whack job husband. So, and then we go right into Love of My Life. So kind of symbolic there. So the first voice you hear on this is Vince Gill, who I'm not that familiar with. I'm not a huge country guy, but I know who Vince Gill is. His first voice you hear on here, which is a guy's voice, but it's like a really high falsetto on here. So you're like, wait, is that Anne? Is that, what's going on here? And then he sings the whole verse and you're like, okay, I'm not sure what that is. But then, so you're kind of confused, but then you realize Anne comes in on the second verse. And so then you realize it's a duet. And what it completely reminds you of, it's a beautiful ballad. It's a really pretty song. But what it takes you back to is Almost Paradise, the Ann Wilson duet with Mike Reno from Loverboy. So it totally goes back to that, even though it's a different guy that's singing with her. I guess the common thread, obviously, is Anne. And so it totally reminds you of Almost Paradise, which is that cheesy song from whatever movie that was from, some disaster epic from the 90s or whatever it was. So is it a cheesy song? Is Love of My Life cheesy? Yes. Was it probably cheesy in the hands of Freddie Mercury and Queen? Yes. But it's Anne's voice. That's what matters here, is that it's Anne's voice that is half of this song. So it's a great effort. The interesting too, whoever the guitarist on this totally imitates Brian May. It's very much a Brian May sound on the guitar here. So very authentic on this. The Love of My Life guitar just sounds just like Brian May. And since I am looking at the album, we're going to do a shift here. We're going to go to the album notes. And since I said I don't know who that is, the guitar is Warren Haynes and Tyler Boley are the guitarists on this album. So there you go. So you can't say that I didn't do my research. I always do my research. Had the album right here, so I looked it up. Those are guitarists on Love of My Life. So really good cover of the Queen song here at number 5. So 6th song, another cover. Not sure 2 in a row here, whatever the formula is, but they did Missionary Man, which is a more familiar cover for sure. And yes, it is the Eurythmics hit. Immediate bombastic open, just very energetic, just like that song has a very energetic open. Whatever happened to Eurythmics, by the way? I know Dave Stewart produced a Stevie Nicks album about 10 years ago that was really good, but I haven't really heard much of either Dave Stewart or Annie Lennox at all, or Anne Lennox. I don't know if it's, does she still go by Annie Lennox? She seems older now, so she would probably not, she might ditch that, although Chrissy Hynde still goes by that, so whatever. Anyway, Ann Wilson completely nails Missionary Man. Just a great, great version of it. And honestly, I got nothing against Eurythmics, but she kills the original on this. She's just so good. And granted, I am predisposed to loving Anne's voice, but she does a great song or great version of this. Just completely kills it. The music stays true to the original, but there is like a smoking, like 70s-ish guitar solo added. And of course, you're putting a legendary voice in over a very good voice. I got nothing against Annie Lennox, but nothing against her. She's a great performer as well. But man, cannot hold a candle to Ann Wilson. So you're replacing the great or the very good voice with a legendary voice. So bottom line is, it's a great song, made even better by the Mount Rushmore singer that Ann Wilson is. So Missionary Man, excellent effort, excellent cover, 6th song on the album. 7th song we go to is called Gladiator. It is back to an original again. It's a very much a Zeppelin acoustic open to this. And I say again, man, Anne is just back to the tried and true formula here, because she keeps going back to these Zeppelin. I can't tell you how many times I've thought about Zeppelin in listening to this album. So she's really sticking with what made Heart legends, And like I said, it's interesting because Nancy kind of branched out and went more folky on her solo album that came out last year. whereas Anne is just sticking with the formula, and it's not anything off the beaten track for her, and and quite honestly, it sounds fantastic. It's really good. So no harm in sticking with the formula here. So the only thing is, like, this was a longer song, so there was a lot of lyrics, so it was a whole page in the book was devoted to the lyrics on Gladiator, and there's the parrot graphics all over this page, so I have no idea what the parrot graphics are supposed to refer to. I think Roger Dean was losing his marbles when he did the artwork here, so he was obsessing about, or maybe he's just obsessed with parrots, whatever. Everybody's got their thing. Again, this song Gladiator sounds just very much like late 70s Heart. Therefore, it is fantastic because late 70s Heart was fantastic. So I just, as I'm listening to more and more songs on this album that just have that sound to them, I'm wondering, are Robert Plant and Jimmy Page friends with Ann and Nancy Wilson? I mean, they've worked together. They know each other. You know, they did that Stairway to Heaven at the, whatever it was, the event in Washington, D.C., where they were there and they were crying in the balcony watching Hart perform. So I know they obviously all know each other. I'm just wondering, how close are they? Are they really close buddies? Or are they just like, oh, those two girls are great, you know, or whatever? I don't know what the relationship is, if there is even one. So it'd be cool to kind of hear about that. So, all right. So eighth song is called Forget Her. It is the final cover on the album, I think. A really good song. It was a cover by from a guy named Jeff Buckley, who I'd heard the name, but I didn't really know much about him. So I looked it up. A very eclectic guy. Guy only had one album. He died very early. He drowned, early 30s. He drowned and died after only putting out one album. Very much of a cult favorite. There was a list of people like Bono and Chrissie Hynde and Leonard Bernstein and all these famous names and famous musicians that loved this guy. And so he died early and people were devastated by it. So I didn't really know much about him. Maybe I'll go check out that album that he had. It's just the one album that he put out. But this song, Forget Her, is a beautiful, sad song that I think Ann just does a great job with this. So it's a song about a guy who needs to leave an awful woman behind. You know, there's just an awful woman in his life and he just needs to leave her behind. She did nothing in the storyline of the song. She did nothing but hurt the guy. It's interesting hearing Anne sing it. So it's interesting hearing a woman singing to a guy, recommending that he distances himself from this loser of a woman that's just been devastating in his life. So song, again, it's called Forget Her. It's a very ominous, the guitar and the rhythm to it are both very ominous. Anne gets increasingly more and more angry and loud as the song goes on. So I think it's an excellent song. A nice, if this guy meant a lot to Anne, I get it. It's a nice tribute to him in the way she performs this song and the way she, again, just like some of the earlier stuff, like Missionary Man, she just totally takes over the song and makes it her own. So Forget Her, just another excellent song on this album. So ninth song is called A Moment in Heaven. There's some piercing guitar on this song. So it is odd in the sense that it's about Hollywood. It's kind of a tale about Hollywood and, the false illusion of what Hollywood represents and what you go to Hollywood for and so on. How Hollywood is viewed as paradise, but it's all a facade. So I'm not sure what the connection is with Anne. I know Nancy was in a movie or two, Fast Times at Ridgemont High for the cameo, where she met Cameron Crowe, who went on to become her husband, or vice versa. Maybe that came first. Not sure why Anne would be bitter about Hollywood. I don't think there's a connection there. So this one is probably just a fictional tale where she's singing about Hollywood. So it must be. I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't come up with a connection here. So it's a good song. Just not sure what the intent of it was. So, but I love A Moment in Heaven, another great clip, another great song on this album. So 10th song is called Angel's Blues. As you can well imagine, it starts with a big old blues open, a very 60s sounding bass and guitar sound. Not a Zeppelin sound this time, I will say that. It did not, even though it's called Angel's Blues, didn't really have a Zeppelin note to it for me. It felt more like a lesser known, like a bluesier rock band from the 60s and 70s, like a Traffic or a Cream or Procol Harum or something like that. It just had more of a lesser known vibe to it. It did not sound like Zeppelin. So, but definitely harkened back to the 60s and 70s. So, there's a guitar solo in here that actually has a very much of a Slash kind of sound to it, actually. So, kind of moderned it up in the middle of the song for the guitar solo. So, but the keyboard keeps creeping in, which keeps on reminding me of like Cream and Traffic and the late 60s kind of vibe. So the last few minutes of this is very much a lighters in the air, swaying back and forth type of song. So this one, I'll say, if you like the bluesier version of Ann Wilson, this song is for you. She sounds amazing here. She does not sound like she's 72 years old. I just saw Stevie Nicks not that long ago, and she's right around the same age. And man, she sounded fantastic as well. So amazing what these ladies can do with their voices to preserve their voices. They're probably drinking tea like 24/7, but Anne sounds amazing on Angel's Blues, so does not sound like a 72-year-old lady, which could be your grandma if you think about it. 72, she could be and probably is a grandma. So anyway, so 11th song, the final song on the album is called As the World Turns. And as I read that title, I'm like, wait, is this referencing Anne's last couple of years of her life, the last few years? Because ever since the criminal battle and so on. So it's called As the World Turns. It makes you think of the soap opera, obviously. And immediately, listening to the lyrics, that yes, this is indeed about her and Nancy. This is indeed about the last few years. So interesting that you can jump to that conclusion, just from the 4 simple words that are the album title. But it is truly about her and Nancy. The lyrics start out, I'm over here, you're over there. According to you, I'm lost somewhere. Hard words fly. So you can tell it's about, Nancy's over there, I'm over here, hard words have flown between the two of us, you think I'm lost, which that is all very accurate to what's going on and what has gone on. So it has kind of this ballady, kind of dog and butterfly kind of open, but it hardens up as it progresses. It's a fitting close to the album. I think it's a really appropriate finish to this album. It's not at all an olive branch, I will say that. It's just more so documenting these times that they're living in right now between the two of them. It's not like, hey, I'm sorry, or, it's not like, hey, we should talk. It's not like that at all. It's just, I think, like I said, I think it's just documenting the times that they're living in. So I thought what was interesting, I honestly, I still say there's not a ton of awareness of the story of why, Anne and Nancy have splintered. There's not a ton of awareness to the general public about that story. So I'm thinking, as people are listening to this song, do they get it? I wonder how many listeners actually get it and realize that this is actually her documenting what's going on between her and Nancy right now these days. So that is it. Fierce Bliss, I will say, as of October, my favorite album of the year so far. Just a fantastic album. I wish there was heart in the 2020s. I wish this was a heart album in 2022, but it's not. This will do. I mean, I love the band, and I love the chemistry, obviously, that the two of them have, and the music and the history that they've had, and the great catalog that they have. But in the meantime, this will do, and I can't say that about Nancy's album. Nancy's album was good, but it wasn't great, and this album is great. So that is it. That is Fierce Bliss by Ann Wilson, her third solo album. I highly enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. So if you're a Heart fan, definitely worth the investment for sure. So that is it. Thank you, Record Store Nation, for listening. Thank you, Brian, for producing. We will be back next week, and thank you to Ann Wilson just for being a badass grandma. So we will be back next week with our... Oh, man, I'm looking forward to it, recording with Brian, but we're going to do the group effort where we review an album together. So join us. Definitely look for Patreon. Sign up for our Patreon so you have a chance to win some of the prizes. And we will be back with you next week. If you're a Patreon, stick with us because we're going to play the favorite song from the album afterwards here and talk about it just for a split second before we get into it. And don't forget, I have fun everywhere I go. We'll see you next